this is Deandra Beatty, and you're listening to The Bowler Show.
Hi, this is Jackie Bowling, and you're listening to The Bowler Show.
This is Jeff Riggles of Storm Products and the 11thframe.com. You're listening to The Bowler Show.
Hi, this is EJ Tackett, and you're listening to The Bowler Show.
This is Dave Lamont, and you're listening to The Bowler Show.
Tonight, we're joined by a couple legends and Hall of Famers who need no introduction and whose accolades would take half the show to list. They are Carmen Salvino and Marshall Holman. And now your hosts, David the Waz Waswo and myself, Luke Rosedal.
All right, welcome one, welcome all to another edition of The Bowler Show. My name is Dave Waswo. I am alongside Luke Rosedal, not exactly alongside, but alongside on the screen. And we are back for another show. We've kind of been hit and miss here a little bit lately. Luke, are you ready to go to this week?
Yeah. Ready to go. We're a little bit busy with my stuff, but you've been busy with tournaments, and so.
Hey, well, let's do this. Let's talk about our sponsors real quick, and then I want you to take a moment and talk about the new thing that you have on your YouTube page before we get started. I just saw it for the first time, so.
Good.
Once again, I don't have our sponsors written down today, so I may need to read your shirt. Of course, each and every show is brought to you by our title sponsor, Storm Bowling. Of course, Storm is the staff of choice for Luke and I, and we've both been on the staff for quite a while. The show is also brought to you by I Am Bowling, Coolwick, SRGBBFS. I'm never going to get that right. I'll let you do that every time from here on out. And then we also have, if I didn't mention Coolwick already, Bowler's Mart, Double J's Pro Shop, BobbyJacksons.com, and S&H Custom Homes, and Turbo Grips. And did I miss anybody, Luke?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, that is all. All right, Luke, do this. Take a moment and tell the people what you got new there on YouTube in relation to your videos.
I've got a memberships thing that I started that I can post some extra stuff. It's just for if people want some extra behind the scenes stuff. We also have a chat server where we've got some coaching stuff. It's something to where instead of like trading comments or somebody having to find me on Facebook or something and send messages back and forth, there's an actual chat server they can get in there and talk to me. It adds some fun stuff for YouTube. Like you get a little icon next to your name, and you get a different color screen name, and so that the people know that you're a member. You get some perks during live stream type stuff. You can add little pictures in there and whatever else. So it's just kind of a beyond the public side, and it kind of allows me to put some extra stuff up there that I don't quite have the time for most of the time, because when you put something onto YouTube, it's got to kind of look professional and presentable and whatever else. And so there's a lot of time that goes into polishing the videos that I could be putting into just, coaching videos, instructional videos, at breaking stuff down. I'm kind of the technical side of things. And if I don't have to worry about the polish and the fluff of making a video presentable for YouTube, then I can put that time towards, kind of the meat and potatoes of stuff. So that's kind of what's new as far as that goes.
All right, well, good deal. That's something to look forward to. If you don't already, or if you haven't already subscribed to Luke's channel, you want to do that first and foremost. Of course, click all the likes that you can on this video. But Luke, I think you and I rambling along here, we're wasting time with our two guests that we have today. We normally want to try to sneak in 3, 4, 5, whatever we can cram in 2 hours. But I decided this week 2 guests is enough. These 2 gentlemen are going to take up the whole hour. And actually, we're going to have a special treat. We're going to have these guys kind of take over the show for a little while in between. As we said, these 2 guys have too long a list of accomplishments to not give them more time, and we're going to do that. And then we're also going to let them talk to each other, as they are good friends. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our first guest. And he is a PBA member, lifetime PBA member, one of the original PBA members of the 32 that started with the PBA. Actually, he, if I read the story right, he donated to get the PBA going, and he has 17 total PBA titles. Of course, he is the legendary Carmen Salvino. Carmen, welcome to the Bowler Show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get people caught up on what you're doing right now. I know for quite a while you were doing some different things in the bowling world. A lot of people didn't even know about. How are you still involved in bowling right now?
Well, when I was 45, that was my last tournament that I bowled on the PBA Tour. And, my buddy Marshall Holman was on that show, and I figured this is my last chance to beat him because I'm getting old. He beat me twice. That's why he talks so nice about me. But
Well,
he's not only a great bowler, he does a great job on TV, and he's a good friend of mine. I think a lot of him.
Well, we will definitely delve into a little bit of that when we bring him on later. But how many? A lot of people didn't realize you hadn't bowled Pete Weber or Dick Weber on TV until one of your last tournaments. How many times did you face Marshall? Do you remember?
I faced Marshall 3 times for the title. I won once. I was glad to get rid of him. He's one of the toughest bowlers in the clutch. There's a lot of guys get on TV, they fold. Not Marshall. He gets better.
Well, we saw some talk here on Facebook this week about people wanting more personalities in bowling on the TV show. They feel like there's not enough rivalries and stuff like you guys had. And to be honest, probably the 2 biggest showmen in bowling at the time were you and Marshall, and you guys always put on a show when you were on TV.
Well, I tell you, if you look at the athletes in all sports, they've all gotten where they've improved their game, but it looks like they're concentrating so much that they're not having fun. And even though we both professionally, my friend, and we both professionally, Marshall and I, put on a show. But when you say put on a show, it wasn't a put on. We were natural. Marshall, when he puts that ball in his hand, his body starts to vibrate. My body vibrates. I don't know how anybody could bowl that calm. If I get 4 or 5 in a row, man, I'm jumping. Marshall gets 4 or 5 in a row. He's giving those arms and his legs are flying. And we loved the sport so much that we were like kids all the time, even though we got older.
Now, when you guys bowled I know you bowled a little bit further back than Marshall did, but when you guys bowled in the 70s and you got on the show, obviously all you guys were friends and everything, and you both wanted to win really badly, but what motivated you, other than the obvious thing to win the title, but what motivated you when you bowled somebody less demonstrative, say, than Marshall? Did you change the way you acted, or was that just you all the time?
Well, I'll tell you what motivated me. I came from a very poor family, which don't feel sorry for me. It's the greatest thing that ever happened to me. And because of it, I had to claw my way up. And when most guys practice 1 hour, I practice 4 hours. I wanted to be a great bowler, and I tried to be the greatest bowler ever. And I did attain that title in this respect. I'm the greatest bowler ever bowled for 65 years. I just made the book of Guinness, so that tells you I'm getting old. But Marshall, you can't make people like Salvino and Marshall. There's a fire in us that once we get on that show, in fact, we get on a shock show, my voice gets stronger. My body starts moving, talking to you guys. That's just our personality. And we want to win so bad that we're willing to pay for it with pain and practice and grips and all that. And going from town to town. And you know what the saddest part about bowling as a great bowler, you don't really develop friends because you're there for 1 week and then you go to the next town. You're there 1 week. 36 weeks I bowl on the tour, 36 weeks I was all different places. how do you make friends? So it became a lonely world, but now life has helped me a little bit. I'm not bowling on the tour anymore. I met some real nice guys. A guy that Frank Urso, he's a singer, past singer, and beautiful voice. And then I met a guy named Mark Roth, is a professor in he's unbelievable in statistics. So I got some friends now, and it's nice to go to coffee with somebody and like them. I couldn't afford friends. I didn't want a friend. When I bowled, I didn't want to like you. My job was to knock you on your butt, wasn't to be friends. So that's the way I used to think. I wasn't a very friendly guy to be on the tour. I was friendly when I was through bowling. On the lanes, I just sooner step on your belly button and push on it and have a good time. That's the killer instinct. If you didn't have that killer instinct, you wouldn't be a Marshall Holman or a Carmen Salvino.
And you got into bowling, the way I read it, you got into bowling when you found a bowling pin outside a bowling center. Is that correct?
I found when I was working on the farm in Florida when I was about 8 years old, I was walking through this place like a farm, and I saw this bowling pin. And for whatever reason, I picked it up, and I took it home with me, and I saved it like it was a trophy or a souvenir to me. Then I became a pin boy. So I started from the very beginning. And I got to give you a little secret when I was a pin boy. My lanes were 1 and 2. And the ladies didn't know it. When the ladies bowl, I got a black hanger that you couldn't see from the beginning. And when they throw the ball that was so slow, I'd knock a few pins down for them with the hanger. And the ladies used to say to me, Carmen, we can't understand it. We always bowl better on your pair. But they gave me quarter tips and dime tips, was a lot of money at that time.
That's an interesting story because, believe it or not, I did a little bit of that in the late 70s, early 80s. I remember taking a wire hanger to a gal left the 7-10, and she hit the 7 with the ball, and I reached in and pulled the 10 out, and it just made her day that she made the 7-10.
Wow. I made the 7-10 one time in my life, and it was by accident. I threw the ball on an exhibition, and I got disgusted that I left the 7-10. I threw it, and I turned my back to the 7-10, and people are screaming. And I'm wondering, what the heck are you screaming about? I'm aggravated. The 10 bounced off the cushion and knocked the 7 down, and I never saw it. Only the people in the audience saw it.
No, that's funny. So take us back to the mid 50s, mid to late 60s. Tell us what it was like on TV back then. We see a lot of the old videos on YouTube with some of the gentlemen you bowled against back then, where it was just you and him on a couple of the bowling shows that were on TV. Talk a little bit about the days when you first started on TV.
I was 17. When I bowled the first television show in Chicago, it was a local show that televised the bowling center. I was 17. So I probably was the youngest guy to ever bowl on television. And another thing, speaking of being the start of the PBA, I was the youngest guy in the room of all 7 of us, and I lost all my buddies. They're gone. But they were great guys. Don Carter, Steve Nagy, Fazio. Those names most people today wouldn't even know. But Fazio was an entertainer too. In fact, he had 11 strikes in a row on the local show that I was bowling on. And he wouldn't throw the 12th ball. The guys with the camera say, what? He's sitting down, he won't bowl. Because it was 11:58. He wanted to worry until 12:01 so he could throw a strike in 2 years. That's the kind of guys we had around. But I want to get something in before we're finished. My greatest tournament I ever bowled in my life was the one I bowled at 87. And the reason why I never made a dime, I didn't cash a dime, but there was 100 guys in the Tournament of Champions. And I was one of 100. And I'm going to bowl my last game, and the tournament director says to me, "You got to hold up and not bowl the last frame." And I'm going, "What is he, crazy?" I've had a tough enough time without sitting there. So when I did that, he brought all over, waited till everybody finished bowling. 99 guys of the greatest bowlers in the world came over and shook my hand and thanked me for my contribution of my sport to the bowling. I have never, ever emotionally ever felt that way, that strong in my life. It brought tears to my eyes that the greatest bowler had that much respect. Then I realized for the first time in my life after 65 years, I did something for bowling, not only Carmen Salvino, for that to happen, and that made me feel good.
Yeah, I remember watching that moment on TV, and that brought tears to a lot of our eyes. We're speaking with Carmen Salvino, PBA gentleman and man who's been on the tour forever, seemingly, and now he's enjoying some of the benefits of retirement. I just want to let the people know in chat. We'll when Luke takes over here, we'll let him ask some of those questions, you guys. We appreciate the questions in there, but I got a couple more for Carmen here. How did the Carmen Salvino pattern come about? Did the PBA talk with you on, the parameters of that, and did you have to okay that?
Say that what Carmen Salvino did what?
The PBA pattern that's named after you.
Oh, well, they named one after Dick Weber too. They took the old timers. I don't know if they ever made one after Marshall. They should have. Well, I can't think about but Weber and myself and Don Carter, they see what they were doing. They were picking the original Hall of Famers that started the PBA.
Yeah. So take a minute and also talk about a couple of your favorite cities or maybe your favorite houses you bowled in.
My favorite city was Vegas. And the reason why, I would never gamble. I never gambled in 47 years that I bowled in Vegas in the tournament. And the reason why it was my favorite, I knew the other guys would be gambling. They wouldn't be as good as they would the week before. So I had a chance to win the tournament, and I did. I won one tournament in Vegas against Earl Anthony, one of the greatest bowlers in the world also. And I was so sick and weak at the time, I couldn't even go out to dinner with the guys and celebrate. I had to go to the room and sleep because I was leaving the next day. But the people in Vegas, there was something different about them. They were more retired people, and they were connected with the casino. In fact, I was invited to 10 different shows, never had to pay for one show. I'm sure Marshall was getting a lot of freebies at the same. Bowling was very strong at Vegas.
And speaking of Vegas, at the Showboat, your last senior event was the first time you met Dick Weber. I'm going to call him Pete Weber every time, apparently. The first time you met Dick Weber on TV in history. That seems mind-boggling as much as you guys were on TV, but talk a little bit about that match.
That was amazing. I bowled Weber one other time, but never for the title.
Yeah.
We bowled for the title in Las Vegas, and he beat me. And we were on live ESPN, and we had 8 or 10 minutes left on the show, and the guys were panicking. The TV people panicked. What are we going to do at 8 to 10 minutes? We don't know bowling. And one guy said, Salvino likes to talk. Go get him out of the locker room. And they brought me on, see? And the first thing I said to Dick Weber, you're a great bowler. And I want to tell you how much I admire you. My mother used to carry me on a blanket. I don't want to say you're old, but I could hardly see you. I was so young, and that's how old you are. You're a great bowler. I gotta respect that. So he said, Salvino, I got to tell you something. You're old too. I remember you bowling on radio. And then I was telling him what a good guy he is, and he got tears in his eyes. I said, wait a minute. I said, you got tears in your eyes, and I came in second. You win, and you're crying? Give me a break, will you? I should be crying that you beat me. We had a great respect for each other, me and Weber and Marshall, guys like that. It got to the point. This is difficult for people to understand why you could respect someone and like them so well. There was a movie one time where two guys were drivers and they were competitors all the time, and they both lasted real long in the movie. And at the end, one guy beats the other guy. I got a little older than him. And the guy that he was walking out, the newspaper guy says to him, well, you finally smashed that jerk. He socked the newspaper guy and said, don't ever talk like that against a guy that's my friend. He said, how could you be his friend? Because I knew what he had to do to be great. And I respected that because he respected me. We both lasted long enough to have respect for each other. And that's what me and Weber came to. And my guys like Marshall Holman. We both for so long, and you're saying to yourself, man, this is tough lasting this long, and that guy's lasted long too. So give him credit. I still wanted to beat him, but I had a lot of respect for him.
All right, I got one more before I turn it over to Luke in the chat window there. You're in the PBA Hall of Fame, the USBC Hall of Fame, the Italian American Hall of Fame. But what a lot of people don't know is that your wife Jenny is in the Illinois Bowling Hall of Fame. Take a moment and talk about what it means to you to be in those Hall of Fames, and talk a little bit about your wife's bowling.
Let me add something for you. I'm in 6 Halls of Fame. The Chicago Sportsman Hall of Fame, with all the ball players, the football players, the baseball, and every sport. Then I'm also in the Italian Hall of Fame. And then the Chicago, the Italian, and 4 others. I don't know, wherever they are. After a while, I loved every one of them, but the Italian Hall of Fame was good for me because of my heritage. In fact, I'm 88 years old, and I just got on a front page of a magazine that the Italian company puts out every month. And I said to the guy, I called them and thanked them for putting me on the cover, because I've been on other covers, but this was my heritage. And getting on at 88 on my heritage meant a lot to me. And I went around and I signed close to 1,000 books to honor them for what they did for me.
Wow, that's awesome. And you also mentioned that Jenny is in the Hall of Fame too.
My wife, Jenny, is in Hall of Fame, and she has been a little bit of an aggravator. I got to tell you why. I was teasing her one time. I said, here's a nickel when you get good. Call me. So she bowled me in front of my fans 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Beat me all 3 times in front of my fans. And I said to her, you keep that up, I ain't talking to you anymore. She said, you promise? What an aggravator. Nothing's changed. We're married 66 years. She's still as tough as ever. I can't get nothing by her. But I love it, because that's a challenge. When I first met her, I won a car on TV, and I made the mistake of standing in front of her. She had the key. She ran me down, and I got behind a pole because she was aggravated with me. I don't know how you could be aggravated with such a nice guy, but anyway, She came after with me, my car, and I said to myself, God, that was a little crazy. But I said, I got to marry her. She's exciting. That shows how wacky I am. The woman tried to kill me, and I said, I got to marry her. And you know what? Nothing's changed. She's still as feisty as ever, and I love it.
66 years of marriage. That's awesome. So congrats to you guys. And Carmen, I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Luke, who we met here just a little bit ago. He's got some stuff for you, and we're also going to delve into the chat questions just a little bit. We got quite a few people here listening and watching in.
I want to tell you one quick story. If I got time to tell you a quick story?
Oh yeah, go for it.
I'm wearing a pacemaker now. I had a little heart problem. So what happened, I got that defibrillation, and I went to the hospital for 5 days. And the doctor that saved my life, I met him once before, and I said to him, he was standing there, I said, you know, when I first met you, I thought you were stiff. He stiffened up a little bit. See? I said, after I got to see you and know you a little bit, you're a nice guy. Then he calmed down. So he was going to do my pacemaker. He comes in the hospital. I'm laying there. At 1 o'clock, it says, I'll come back at 4 o'clock, and we'll talk about your pacemaker for tomorrow. He doesn't come back. So I said to the nurse, where's Dr. Warnick? He's going to do my pacemaker. Well, he's busy, and he won't be available till Saturday. I said, wait a minute. I'm laying in bed here Monday. I got to wait till Saturday to do my pacemaker. Give me another doctor. So I get this Dr. Patel. He operates on me. To keep the story short, everything went fine. Now I got an appointment with Dr. Warnick that was going to do it 2 weeks later, and he's a little upset with me, to say the least, that I went ahead. So he saw, I said to him, hey, you were supposed to show up. It wasn't me. You were wrong. Then he realized he was wrong, and he tried to be nice to me. He said, the battery will last 13 years. He's trying to give me a little encouragement. I said, good. I'm 88. You could do the next one. He looked at me. He didn't have a word to say. I said, I'll only be 101. That's what I told him. And I said, I ain't worried about me. I'm worried about you. I'm going to check out to see if you're going to be here when I'm 101.
Oh, man.
Do me a favor. Come back in 6 months. Doctors down at the hospital now all got together. They're trying to get me well so I don't come there anymore.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, Luke. Luke, take it over from here.
All right, so we got an interesting question in the chat. That we had somebody that asked if you could talk about the Lost League.
The what league?
The Lost League. Remember being at Lost League matches at Jefferson Bowl in Southern California?
Oh, yeah. You're talking about like match games and all that stuff?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, they just want to hear some about that.
Yeah, well, see, a lot of guys didn't think I was that good a bowler because I was like 18 years old. And in those days, you had to be closer to 30 because it took a lot longer with the equipment we had. You know, we had polyester balls and stuff like that. And I was very fortunate. I had very strong hands. To this day, I can do push-ups on my wrist. That's how strong my hands are. So I was able to crank that ball a lot.
Yeah.
And all these guys in California thought I was an easy touch. Here's this young punk, you know, he's flashing money around. We'll take him on. Well, to say the least, I wiped him out. They told me to leave town. We had enough of you.
Yeah.
It was fun. I'll tell you, I did that. I went throughout the country and did things like that because I was only 18 and everybody thought I was the pigeon. And I would have a guy stand behind in the audience and I would kind of throw the ball decently and make a spare or two here. until he gave me the signal that he had enough money bet. Then I threw 4 or 5 in a row to get. I was a hustler even then. But that's exciting when you bowl head to head with a guy for money, of your own money and his money. Then you can see who's got the heart, who's got the game. But I always love head-up bowling because I wish I could bowl the finals on every TV. It would be my thrill because qualifying was never that exciting for me. I did it to get to the show, obviously. But bowling on the tour until I met that guy, Marshall Holman. And then he upset me because he beat me 3 tournaments. Out of the first 3 tournaments I bowled him, he beat me. I finally got him one time in California. And I let him know I was 45, and I said, baby, I'm not bowling on the tour anymore, and you ain't going to get a chance to whip me anymore. But they don't come any better than we had different characters then. Marshall was just another character. I was a character. We had Weber was a character, and then Petey Weber. You talk about a character. This guy, he's flying. So anyway, we had a lot of characters. We had a guy named Bourdais. He threw the ball. He gets 9 strikes in a row. He gets in the 10th frame. He leaves the 10 pin. He walks up to the lane and throws the ball in the gutter. And some lady says to him, what'd you do that stupid thing for? He said, strikes are for men and spares are for ladies. I don't shoot spares. The guy, we had some, believe me, besides Marshall Holman, myself, we had guys that were floating. We had to pull them down from the sky. I mean, we had some really dudes, I'll tell you. That guy, how could you throw 10 in a row and throw the ball in the gutter?
I'm gonna pull a question from the Dave Waswo playbook. I'm gonna ask you about who was your most favorite bowler to bowl against, whether it's match play, TV, whatever, or even money, pot games, high stakes games, whatever. Who was your favorite bowler to bowl, and who was your least favorite bowler to bowl?
Weber, because he was the greatest of my time, and he had explained that we both lasted that long, and to beat him would be great because I know how long he had been great and how long I had been great. Then it was not a matter of beating some guy that just came on the tour. We wanted to beat the greatest of each other. That's very different than beating another bowler. And then, like I said, Marshall Holman irritated me. He'll talk nice about me because, I made him famous. The guy he can beat many guys before he beat me. I made him famous because he beats me 3 times in a short period of time. So he goes around telling people, I beat Salvino, that great bowler, and I beat him 3 times. And he never talked about the 4th time when I got him. But that's the fun. That's the fun of guys like that. See, I relate to guys like Marshall and Weber and all that. Those guys. Carter's great as a bowler he was within himself, but he was not with the public like Weber. But Weber was the best ambassador for bowling. And I consider myself next to Weber as the second ambassador for bowling. Marshall Holman is an ambassador for bowling. Strangely enough, Petey Weber in his own way is an ambassador for bowling because he gets people interested. Petey Weber's a little crazy. I'm sitting in the audience when he's bowling in New Jersey. He's bowling for the Masters title. And the guys from New York came to New Jersey, and they're heckling Petey. Yeah. Petey goes over there to the stands and says, in their face, in your face. And I'm going to win this tournament in your face. And they're booing him and all that. And I said to myself, I'm sitting in the stands. I know Dick, Petey Weber used to come in my room when he was a little kid. He used to steal my peanuts and drink my orange juice. I gotta go save that kid because there ain't no way he can fight. Because all those New Yorkers, when I'm finished, are going to kill me. And Petey probably he can run away while I'm trying to save him. But he's nuts. And then when he wins the tournament, he couldn't leave nothing alone. He goes to those guys and says, I am what I am. Just like that. He goes in their face. I am what I am. Believe me, he's exciting.
All right. So
let me tell you the best question.
Yeah, go for it.
Question. If you had two guys, who would you, of the tour, what two guys would you want to go to dinner with? I said, Petey Weber and Marshall Holman. They're exciting. I don't want to sit next to anybody that I got to do all the talking. I said, those two guys will probably get in a fight before we leave the restaurant, but it's going to be exciting.
All right. So if you were in your prime again, say you're like 20, 25, 30, whenever you think that, or I guess anywhere between the ages of 20 and 70, probably, whenever you felt your best about bowling, but you were bowling now, with today's technology, with all the things that have changed throughout the years, what do you think about today's game that would have benefited you the most, and what might have been tough for you to adjust to?
Let me bring you up to date. I invented a new grip by the laws of physics for me.
Okay.
And I'm going to be 89 the 23rd of this month. And I said to my wife, I got a whole year to practice with my new grip. She said, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to make a comeback. So she said to me, you see where the door is? Don't come back. I drive my wife crazy, and I'm serious. I'm working out now. I'm physically in great shape. My hands are strong again. I'm getting better balance. I'm learning how to get balance, and I don't have any problem with strength. And I told her this new grip, I'm coming back, baby. So you'll be able to put me on the show when I'm 91 because I'll win a tournament at 90.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, then won't have to wonder about it then.
I tell you what, I still got the fire in me, baby. Don't take it for granted, all you puppies, because I'll knock you on your ass in plain English.
Oh, that's great. All right, we got one more from the chat here. I wanted to hear about the time that you beat Weber on championship bowling.
Well, actually, what happened was Weber beat me on championship bowling. See, we had a three-way tournament. It was total pins for two guys. The two guys that had the most total pins would get to bowl each other. There was a kid from California named Ron Winger. He bowled better than me and Weber. He was already the leader. Between me and Weber, whoever won would have a shot to bowl him. But what happened is my score was so close to Weber, even though I lost, my total pins was higher, so I got to bowl for the championship against the kid. I bowled him and beat him, and the governor of Virginia came over to give me the trophy. You see, people don't understand how much we affected the world at that time.
Yeah.
When we bowled in California, we bowled with movie stars.
Mm-hmm.
We bowled with beautiful ladies like Angie Dickinson, the girl that was a Miss America. We both were beautiful, and the guy that was going into was going to do the Italian movie Godfather, James Caan. He came in the lounge and he was arm wrestling with our guys. We mingled with the greatest stars in the world, singers, everything, because they had a company, like a club, and they would have all their money would go to charity. So what we did when we bowled on Monday, all their money went to charity, and on Tuesday, all our money went to the proprietor. But every Monday we bowl with the biggest stars in the world, and we got to know them. And one guy, when I won a tournament, called me from his home in California. When I was in New Orleans, when I won the tournament, he called me to thank me. One of the movie stars. That's how close we were. We were famous. Movie stars knew us. Other athletes wanted to be around us. We were the stars.
All right, Carmen, kind of bouncing off Luke, what Luke was saying. I want to know kind of what he was talking about there. If you were out there today and you were your age back then, let's put it that way, you were in your prime, can you beat Belmo and can you beat these two-handed guys?
Well, let's put it this way. They would have to show up just so that I had somebody to beat. Does that answer your question?
I believe that puts to rest any questions about whether you think you would beat them in your prime versus their prime. So,
if I was in my prime, all I'd want to do is put some oil on those lanes. They could take the two-handed shot, and I'll put my wrist and cock that ball a little bit, throw it out to the gutter, and memorize them. They would be so dizzy from watching my ball, they'd have trouble. They start looking. They put their thumb in the finger holes next when I got finished with them. Are you kidding? I would put the fear of God in those boys. Are you serious? All I had to do was step on the approach. They were done. They were bowling an idol. They couldn't handle that.
Oh, that's good stuff. Well, talk a little bit about the difference in the game. Obviously, some things people don't know about you. You were to the chemistry of the bowling ball for a while too. So talk a little bit about the changes in the game from back then to now.
Yeah, when I was 45, I went into physics first, and I was working with the professor at Case Western Reserve, and he was in aeronautics, and I found a way to dynamically balance the sphere. And I called him and told him, and he made a release on it. And I made 10 newspapers, a front page of 10 newspapers at that time throughout the country. And I became very famous because it had bowler.
Yeah.
Invents dynamic balance to a sphere that the professor said was the greatest contribution to a sphere in the last 200 years. So that was my title. He blew it up, man. I'm getting calls from people that was unreal. See, so then I went to Brunswick at that time, and I put my patent on the inside of the ball, and they put chemistry over it, and they screwed up the chemistry. I went home and I was so aggravated. I told my wife, I'm never going to let anybody put chemistry on my ball. She said, well, what are you talking about? I said, from now on, I'll do the chemistry. She said, what? You didn't even know physics. Now you're telling me? I said, well, be honest, I didn't even know how to spell chemistry at one time. So I started in chemistry at 68 years old. I'm 88 today. I'm working with the Storm Company on a new polymer that I developed. And I work with Bill Chrisman and Dave Sims. And one of my buddies down there is named Max Bear. excuse me, my brain. That happens to me when I'm 88. But my brain needs to get a rest. I don't want to overpower it. But Max, well, anyway, he's my buddy Max, and I've got a good friendship with him. And Storm is very unusual company. I've been into Amical Research Center, Schenectady International. I did chemistry for them. I was in their labs, all that. And I've never seen a company, I was allowed to come in and be more unified than the Storm Company. I never saw people working with more happiness and hard work. And my buddy Max used to get there 5 o'clock in the morning and leave at 5 o'clock in the evening. This guy, that's how I met him. He helped me on my project. And to this day, we still talk. In fact, I just talked to him today. Max Neal, that's his name.
There you go.
But it's so hard for me because I met so many people in my lifetime. The worst thing that could happen to me, I'm bowling in the tournament. I look in the audience by mistake because I don't do that. And I see something I know, but I don't know where I know him from because he bowled in Akron. The guy just drives to Detroit, and now he's out of place. If he was in Akron, I'd know it like that. So, you know, it got to the point where people would say, "You remember me? I met you 30 years ago." "Oh, yeah. You throw a hell of a shot." What the hell? What am I going to say to him? In 30 years from now, they're going to say, "Remember that show you were on with Luke and John?" I said, "Oh, yeah, they were hell of a guys." Because I'll be here looking for a new Luke and John. Because I'm going to keep doing these kind of shows. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. You remember when I bowled the 1987 King Louis Open with you, right?
See, there you go. That's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. There was only 4,000 people that I met at King Louis Bowl. And he tells me, "You remember me?" I said, "Yeah, the other 399, I forgot them already." I remember John.
All right, that is some good stuff, Carmen. I'll tell you what we're gonna do. I'm gonna get with Marshall Holman here, and we're gonna bring him on here in a minute. So, if there's anything you want to say before we bring him on, why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about him, and then we'll bring him in.
I want to do it while he's right on. I want to look in his eyes. I got things to tell him. I don't want to tell him secondhand. I want it to come from the man. Put him on.
All right, we're in the process of that right now. As soon as he's ready, he'll kick in here, and I believe there he is right now. Luke, when you get a chance.
You're telling these people that I'm a legend and all this stuff. Sure, you talk nice to me. You stole 2 tournaments from me. I would have had 2 more to come in second to you. I had to beat you, and I was 45 years old. And because of you, I had to retire. Guys like you were killing me.
Hey, Carmen,
Yeah.
you'll always be the king as far as I'm concerned. And, you know, you're the man that got me involved in the game. When I was just a kid watching in the 60s, and I saw you bowling on TV, you made bowling fun. You made me want to bowl. And for me to come out on tour and be lucky enough to bowl against you and to beat you in Fresno and Hawaii in 1975, it was more than I could have ever hoped for. So it was those are wonderful memories. It's so good to see you. And, you know, I was watching, and occasionally I'd see Ginny, and she'd sort of sneak in around the doorway, and I could see her. And I love you both, and I'm glad that you're still doing well.
I want to ask you a question, Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
You ever bowling in Olmsted, Cleveland? Olmsted, Cleveland?
Sure, North Olmsted.
Didn't you win the tournament there?
I never won. I won a fall stop in Cleveland. I never won the winter stop at North Olmsted. I was at Buckeye Lanes. I never won there, but had a lot of good tournaments there. I think Dick Richter beat me back in the day. Well, probably must have been in between.
I remember, but you were just a young puppy then.
I was just a young puppy. You're 20 years older than me.
You threw a ball and you left a 10-pin. We had our sponsor sitting in the front row of the tournament, and you hit your rosin bag.
I threw it and hit the ceiling.
There was rosin flying all over the bowling center. I said, well, we just blew 2 more sponsors.
Hey, Carmen, listen. Let me give you the Paul Harvey rest of the story version of that, because later that evening, the North Olmsted Police Department came knocking on my door, and they said, "You've got to go down and talk with our desk sergeant because those flecks of whatever were falling from the ceiling, and this lady wants to have you arrested for assault." And so I went and talked to a desk sergeant in the morning, and he almost cried. He was laughing so hard. Assault with a deadly weapon, a rosin bag, little rosin flecks falling down.
Let's see, what else? You did a lot of exciting things. I'm trying. Yeah, and when we bowled in Fresno, I remember you starting off. You shot 279 against me. I struck out the last 5 for 238 or something. I wasn't even in the game. You had the first 5. By the time I started striking, I was just keeping you company because you were doing your act real good, baby. And we had an acting show go on for the last 5 frames. But you took the title. I was really acting.
That was amazing. I was 20 years old, Carmen, when I beat you in Fresno. And
do you have to mention that to the audience?
Well, you were twice my age.
Yeah. And I was 45 when I finally beat you. And I said to myself,
at the AC Delco. Yeah, you beat me in Torrance, California, I think it was.
Yeah. You know, we had characters then, really. The guys today are great, but I don't see the characters. Dick Weber was a character too. Petey Weber, yourself, myself. We had Bourdain. That guy. Bourdain was a little wacky. I mean, he wasn't acting. He was naturally wacky.
I was never very close with Ed. He kind of scared me. He was a little. I'm not sure he was as stable as he could have been. That's coming from one of the least stable people ever to throw a bowling ball. But yeah, Ed was he was a talented player. You know, he threw the ball real straight, very accurate. But he definitely his emotions were always percolating towards explosion.
Yeah, well, you were smart to figure him out because he had a little side effect that when he bowled, you didn't want to be around him. If he could bowl over the second arrow, he'd be tough. If you move him in, you kill him. And you know another thing I used to do deliberately when I bowled him? I threw a Brunswick. I threw a Brooklyn. And when I threw the Brooklyn, he was done for the rest of the game because it would get him so crazy. But then I had to sit away from him because I knew sooner or later it was going to go wacky.
Well, you didn't have 1/10 the talent that you had.
Baby, we had fun. We had some of the greatest bowlers that ever lived in our era.
It was a great time. You know, the 60s, 70s, and 80s were an amazing time in bowling, and I'm happy that I had a chance to be a part of that. That was they're great times, they're great memories, and it's so good to see you and to stay in touch with you. You know, even after our careers have been over for many years, the bowling and the competitiveness that goes away, but the friendships stay.
Well, I got to tell you something about Marshall Holman and a guy named Mark Roth. These two guys bowled doubles at Vegas. None of us could beat this combination. I'm being honest. I'm not patting you on the back. Nobody could beat that combination. Remember, you guys were both at the top of your game.
Yeah.
You ran away with the doubles. Every year we bowled the doubles. In fact, I was thinking to my Italian friends to call them and have them take you for a ride. So we could break up the team a little bit.
Yeah.
I
was good. I was good, and Mark was the best.
I'll tell you. But you guys, Marshall and you and Roth were still to watch. Roth, he had a lot of fire too, but he never really showed the emotions like you. But he had the fire. You can say that.
That's for sure, Carmen. Good times.
You take care. I'm going to leave you my audience.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you priming things up for me.
I don't want to take more time. I want to leave a little time for my buddy, Marshall Holman, that kicked my ass 3 times. I'm never going to forgive you for it, so I don't care how much you sweet talk me.
Okay.
I love it anyway, in spite of it. It's nice being on the show with Luke and John. Take care of my buddy. God bless you all. And remember, you talk to the best bowler in the world. When he was on the show, nobody could out-talk him.
You're right, Carmen.
All right, Carmen.
Marshall,
thank you.
God bless you, babe.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much
Carmen.
for coming on.
Nice to see you.
Have a good night, Carmen.
Take care.
All right, Marshall, let's give you your due here. Obviously, you're following one of the greatest ambassadors in the history of our sport. You've got a total of 22 PBA titles. Of course, you're in the USBC and the PBA Hall of Fame. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Woz. It's great to be here, and it's so good to see Carmen. I from time to time we'll talk on the phone and catch up a little bit. And I'll never forget as a younger player. He used to tell all the young kids that he was gonna retire us because he's gonna stay around forever, and he'd still be great when we were has-beens. And just what a great personality, and has a huge heart, and he loves the game, he loves his friends, and we feel the same way.
Yeah, I love him. I love what he's done for the sport. He called me John a bunch of times, but that's okay. I don't even mind. So he lost track of my name there, but that's okay. And that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, of course, and everything that's going on. But when you were announcing, did you ever get a chance? Was there ever a crossover time where he was bowling and you were on the call?
No, I never did. He was still bowling some senior events. I did the telecast from 96 through early 2001, and then I did some stuff for the tour, for the next 10 years after that as well. But I never remember being on the call when Carmen was bowling in any of the senior tournaments or senior doubles events. Would have been fun.
All right. Well, let's do like we did with Carmen. Let's take people back to the very start of your career. There's a lot of things he talked about, how he got into bowling. Take us back to your younger days. What got you into the sport? And obviously you started winning in a young age, so you were hooked early.
Well, yeah. Well, I think I mentioned it earlier. I watched Pro Bowlers Tour on ABC Sports back in the 60s, and the two bowlers that got me excited, that made the game fun for me and made me want to try bowling, were Carmen Salvino and Harry Smith. And then to get on tour and to have my first opportunity to win bowling against my idol, Carmen Salvino, and then beating him was really, you couldn't have scripted anything more exciting. So Carmen was a big part of me wanting to bowl because he made it look fun. He wasn't just knocking pins down. He was showing emotion and having a good time. And that's what got me hooked.
So that was natural for you also.
Oh, absolutely. Carmen mentioned that that it wasn't an act. It certainly wasn't an act with me. I never knew what I was going to do from moment to moment. I was just fired up and excited, and I reacted to the shots. There was nothing phony about what was going on. It was just what was Marshall going to do next, and sometimes it was wonderful, and sometimes it was a little over the top.
I can relate to that, and people who know me can relate to that a little bit too. And I was going to bring this up later, but you kind of led me into it. I got a couple of questions about the time that you were bowling the Roth Holman. Well, I call it the Roth Holman doubles now. At the time, it was just the doubles, and now it's you guys.
Yeah, definitely. Mark always gets top billing. Absolutely.
Exactly. And you were bowling, I believe, Tommy Hudson, Pete Couture, and you threw the ball, and it looked like it was going to react, and it kept going straight, and you bucketed. I believe it was in the 9th frame, and you took a swipe at the foul line and accidentally kicked the foul line and broke it. Now, we all saw that, and I saw it. I didn't realize that they gave you a 10 tournament suspension for that, which I thought was kind of crazy. But
I'd have got a pat on the back. If it had been in today's game, the commissioner would not have fined me. He would have said, "Thank you for making bowling more interesting." But the foul line was not bolted down solidly, and when I kicked, I caught it with the heel of my shoe, and the foul line flopped over, and it really was it was terrible. I mean, I'm sorry it ever happened, and then to give me the 10-week suspension, it was very calculated. They suspended me for 10 weeks and fined me $2,500. Well, the 11th week was the Great and Greatest tournament, which had a guaranteed last place prize money of $2,500. So it was calculated to do it that way so that I wouldn't try to appeal the suspension. But what a lot of people don't realize is that I was a very successful player for many years after that, but I never had the passion for the game that I had prior to that. Joe Antonora and the hierarchy of the tour took my heart out of the game. I still bowled well, but I never bowled with the same visceral gut emotion that I did prior to that. So it was an unfortunate thing. It was the 10th frame. We were behind by a few pins. Mark had struck in the 9th frame. I needed a strike to put the pressure on the Hudson Couture team, and I overamped the speed a little bit. The ball hung, left the bucket, and then I kicked at the air, and unfortunately hit the foul light, and the rest was, in my opinion, some pretty shitty history.
All right, well, let's move on from that, because I thought Couture and Hudson protesting the match too at the time.
They wanted to, but there was no reason for them to protest the match because they won.
Yeah,
and who knows what would happen if Pete would have got up in the 10th frame and opened, and then Mark and I would have won. I don't know what nothing would have happened except I would have received the same punishment. It's not certainly one of the most talked about events ever from my history, and my least popular event to talk about for myself. It's just, thank you so much for bringing it up. It brings back a lot of very, very bad memories, and Joe Antonora, God rest his soul, he was doing what he felt was the proper thing to do. He was being pressured by a lot of people within the industry. And as I said before, had it have happened in today's game, I would not have been, I probably wouldn't have paid 2 cents. But Can't do anything. It's like, one of my favorite things to tell people is that you cannot do anything about what's happened in the past. You can only take care of your present and your future. So that's ancient history. That was back in was it 1982 or 83? It was a long time ago. And yeah. So anyway, next.
All right. You only made 115 other championship round appearances, and I chose that one to talk about. So, talk about some of the happy memories. Obviously, you ended up with 22 titles. You made 53 championship match appearances. So, talk about some of the fun people you bowled against, and talk about maybe just your favorite match you bowled on TV.
Well, my favorite match on TV was probably against the same person that my least favorite match was. It was against Pete Couture, and it was in the 77 Brunswick World Open. And I was ahead through most of the game. It was the semifinal match. The winner was going to bowl Mark Roth for the title. And I was ahead, and in the ninth frame, I left the 2-4-10. And I think I tried to make it, and I just got the 4-pin, so I lost count, and now Pete needed to get up in the ninth and 10th frame. If he strikes the 9th, 10th, and 11th, he basically has me beat. So he strikes the 9th, strikes the 10th, strikes the 11th. Now he just needs 7 pins to shut me out. And in today's game, you see this leave a lot because the balls are so dynamic and they cut through the pins at such a big angle. But Pete never threw a big hook, and he threw it a little slower. His ball hit the nose. He left the 3, 4, 6, 7, 10, 5 count. Now all of a sudden, I can get 3 strikes in the 10th and win the match. And as soon as he left that 5 count, I just popped out of my chair and I felt re-energized and invigorated, and I felt like I was just going to strike out. I just felt I was going to do it, and I threw 3 of the best shots of my life. Bang, bang, bang. Finished with a one pin victory. I remember Jack Buck was doing the call, and I remember him saying when I threw the shot to win, he said, "It's up, it's out, it's in." He finished with 3 in a row, and then I started with the first 9 against Mark and won the tournament. So that was that 77 World Open was the most exciting event that I participated in, and I had a lot of not so good matches on TV. If you look at my television record, it wasn't very good. I think I bowled for the title 21 times from the number 1 position, and I won 7 of them. So my TV record wasn't great, but it was great there.
Yeah, it's funny. A lot of the greats, including Earl Anthony, a lot of people don't realize he has more second place finishes than he has first place finishes, and Walter Ray has a ton of seconds also. So obviously, other guys already bowling. Warmed up, got a little bit of an advantage there, but
sure. I had 22 wins. I believe I had 32 second place finishes. So, and I never finished second before. I won 10 tournaments before I ever finished second. So I got off to a very, very fast start with my career, but then for a myriad of different reasons, didn't perform well in the clutch. Got a bad break, somebody else got a good break, whatever. It wasn't a great television record, but it was a great time, and I had a nice time bowling on tour. Was fortunate. I never really had to have a real job, and till many years after touring.
Yeah, let's take a moment and talk about Mark. Obviously, at the time, one of your rivals and obviously one of the most dominant players of all time. Talk about your relationship with Mark and tell us a little bit about how you guys became doubles partners.
Well, I always bowled. There were 2 squads basically back in the day, and Mark and I were on opposite squads. So when Mark was bowling, I wasn't, and vice versa. So we were never really that close as friends because we never had a chance to really hang out together. I believe it was in 1976 at the Tournament of Champions that Mark came up and asked me if I would bowl with him in the doubles. And I couldn't have said yes faster. I mean, it was just immediately, absolutely, that would be great. And Mark was a great doubles partner. We did become friends, through all the years we bowled doubles together, and just a mutual respect. And we had a lot of great matches where, I beat Mark. I'd lead a tournament and he'd beat me. Then the next week he'd lead the tournament and I'd beat him. And bowling doubles with him was easy. He always was the leadoff man and let me be the anchor. And you would think you'd have the anchor bowler as the best player, but I always knew that I was a very good player, but I wasn't Mark Roth. Mark was the lion's share of the team, and he would bowl first because our ball reactions were similar, and he would make the great shot, and he would line me up. So he would tell me, okay, Marshall, this lane hooks 3 and 1 more than the last right lane or whatever. And so I didn't even have to think. I just okay, Mark, whatever you say. I just follow his lead, and it just worked out. It worked out great. And we lost Mark a little over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, it's sad. No one loved bowling more than Mark. He really, really enjoyed it up until he passed. He always talked about, I want to bowl doubles with you one more time, Marshall. I really want to get out there and bowl. So he had a childish zest for the game that never left him. It lasted his entire life, and I'm jealous of that. That was a wonderful thing to have.
Yeah, and I bowled on tour in the late '80s, and then a short stint back in the late '90s that led me to where I'm at today. It wasn't very good on tour. I was good at 25th to 53rd, but never did much match play, and obviously never made a show. But I got lucky. My last tournament, I'll take a moment here of your time, was in 1999. It was at the Showboat in Las Vegas, and a buddy of mine was coming to watch. I was in the casino business here in town. He'd moved out to Vegas, and he didn't realize that when I said I was a pro bowler, that I was bowling professionally with guys like yourself and Mark Roth. And Mark happened to be his hero, and as luck would have it, I am crossing with Mark Roth in this tournament. So my buddy comes out, and he sees that Mark's on my pair, and he's just losing it. I don't think people realize the difference in the game, Marshall, now. Sure, there's a lot of fans, and there's, but back then, it was just different. You were an athlete back then, and things were just different. But that's my Mark Ross story. I got a chance to cross 24 games, as you know. The Showboat was a 3-day, eight game block tournament, and I got a chance to be with Mark, and that was the last tournament I ever bowled. So, and bowling with him, that was just a great honor to be able to do that.
Yeah, he was the father of the modern game. I mean, Carmen threw the ball with a lot of authority and a lot of revolutions, but Mark ramped it up quite a few notches, and people saw the way that he threw the ball, and they wanted to throw it like Mark, and that's why you're getting so many people that want to throw the ball like Jason Belmonte or Anthony Simonson, the power two-handers, which, in all honesty, I'm not so sure I'm 100% behind what they do, because in my day, the most critical part of the game was clearing your thumb. They never have to clear their thumb. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing how much power they get and what they do with the ball, but I don't know. If I could turn back time, and I was the governing body of the sport, I might take exception with what they're doing.
Well, I had Mark Roth on the show probably around 2014-ish, if I had to guess. And he was not a big fan of two-handers at that time either. So he let us know what he thought. I'm not sure if you ever saw it, but one time on TV, Belmo needed a spare. He needed to pick up the 5'9". He went Brooklyn, of all places. Needed a spare to win the match. He might have been sitting – he was sitting next to somebody in the crowd, and he looked at him, and you could see him mouth the word chop. So I know Mark wasn't a big fan, and, a lot of people are and a lot of people aren't.
Mark loved to watch the guys on the shows, and he loved to watch them throw the ball, and immediately when they would release the ball, he would either go strike or he'd go 4-pin or he'd go 10-pin. And he was right most of the time. He had an amazing eye for the game. He could tell when it left someone's hand whether it had a good chance of striking or not.
All right, you've finished up your Hall of Fame career, and all of a sudden we see you on TV. You're working with Dave Ryan, you're working with Bo Burton, you're working with Mike Dermott. Talk a little bit about the transformation as a bowler to a broadcaster and how that got started.
Well, in 1996, ESPN was looking for a new voice to be their color commentator, and I believe that the three people they were looking at were myself, Brian Voss, and I believe the third was Mike Albee. And I told the powers that be that I said, not only do I think that I can do as good or better job than the other players you're thinking of having, but they're still right there in the prime of their careers. They're subject to be on the telecast, and then you're going to have to find somebody to sub for them. I'm washed up. My game's done. So, I think for those reasons, I think I'm your guy. And so they hired me. And in my second week as the color commentator, I led the tournament in Detroit and won the event. So I turned out to be kind of a liar, but only a temporary liar, because I really did nothing. I hadn't done anything for 5 or 6 years prior, and I did nothing afterwards, and basically stopped bowling in the 1997, 98 is when I really stopped bowling and just concentrated on doing television. I enjoyed doing television. It's the best job that a former athlete can have. It's just to be able to be on television and to critique the play and explain why it was a good shot and why it was a bad shot. And my first producer, I was being a little bit soft with my analysis, and he said in my ear, he says, "You're not a player anymore. Quit trying to make friends. You need to just call the shots like you see them." And I tried to do that afterwards. I'm not. I threw some humor in it. I'm certainly not the comedian that Randy Peterson is, but I enjoyed it. It was a fun time, and I'm glad I had a chance to do it. My father was in broadcasting for most of his life, and he wanted to be, in Hollywood. He wanted to be in movies. He wanted to be, in the big time. And here his son, who by virtue of being able to throw bowling balls, was working for ESPN and CBS. And my dad loved it. He would watch the shows with a pad and a pencil, and he would write down what he thought I did well and what he thought I didn't do well. And then we would talk about it, post shows. And he was never critiquing me to be mean. He was just doing that because he wanted to see me, do the best that I could. And he was very proud. And he passed away in 2001, shortly after I was done doing television. So he got to watch all of that, and that really brought us closer together.
Take a moment and talk about Bo Burton. You bowled against him, and then you also did some telecasts with him. And a question I always wondered was he the one who coined you the Medford Meteor?
I think Larry Lickstein was the one that started calling me the Medford Meteor first. But Bo was a heck of a player, and he's still a good bowler. And I think he's in his later 70s now. He's living in Florida, and I know he still bowls, and he's still pretty competitive. He was, being in the right place at the right time is very important in whatever you do. And Bo found himself in the right place at the right time back when ABC was looking to replace their color commentator, who's Billy Whaley. Billy Whaley passed away in 1974, and unexpectedly, and they needed a new voice, and they auditioned a few people, and Bo got the job. He was pretty well spoken, and he was a good looking guy. And television is a visual medium, and yet I got the job anyway. But Bo did a great job on ABC for many, many years. He and Chris Schenkel were a Saturday mainstay, and people still remember them very, very fondly to this day. Bo did a great job. He was really the first, as I would call, modern day commentator, and it's a high pressure job. I will tell you that, because you're there with a metaphorical gun to your head, and you have to perform, and you have to be able to to tell it as you see it, and Bo did that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, now, I got a personal question for you. Have you ever bowled in a little bowling alley in Sutherland, Oregon?
Years ago, I've driven by it more times than I can imagine. In fact, I went up to Eugene last Friday, so I drove past it on the way up, and I drove past it on the way back. But many years ago.
All right. The reason I ask is it's got a special place in my heart. I was lucky enough to ride with Wayne Webb in his Winnebago for a couple of weeks, from California up to Seattle and back to California. As you know, back in our day when we bowled, there were long trips in between many times. So he invited myself and Tom Adcock to ride along, and we stopped in Sutherland, Oregon, and we stopped at the house. Wayne drilled me a couple of balls. He was back with Hammer back then, and he worked with me for like 2 or 3 hours on my game. So it's something I've always remembered, and was just curious how. I know it was north of Medford, of course, but I couldn't remember where it was in relation.
Yeah, it's Sutherland would be about 100 miles north of Medford. Yeah.
Yeah, good memory. So, all right, I'll tell you what, Marshall, I'm going to take a break here. I'm going to turn it over to my partner, Luke. He's got some questions for you here ready to go. Probably knows a little more about the technicalities of the bowling ball and stuff. Maybe he's got something with the difference in bowling balls nowadays to now. But I'm going to turn it over to my co-host for a little bit.
All right, Waz. Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you, sir.
Yeah, so I think that regardless of the era that you bowled in, you bowled back when it was I don't want to date you or anything, but you bowled back when they oiled the lanes with bug sprayers, and bowling's gone such a long way from when you started to where it is now, and I think people like you have a way of looking past the era or bowling ball technology, lane oils, whatever else. Who are some of your favorites to watch? Who do you think really gets it? Who are your favorite players, regardless of era or whatever else? Who do you think is who are some of your favorites, basically?
Well, obviously Mark Roth was a favorite of mine to watch. Back in the day, if there was enough lane oil for Mark to use a yellow dot, which in today's world would be as dynamically not dynamic as you could get. But back in the day, the yellow dot was the power ball. If he could use a yellow dot, Mark was almost unstoppable. He was great when he had to use white dots, which were the harder Columbia balls back in the day. But always enjoyed watching Mark. I always made it a point to watch him because, as I said earlier, our patterns of roll were similar. And, you watch the films or YouTube videos of how much or how little Mark Roth's ball hooked back in the day compared to what the guys are hooking the ball now. Even the guys that don't have much of a hand hook the ball a lot more than Mark did. But Mark had so much power and so much authority through the impact zone of the release. He was always enjoyable to watch. And as far as from the other side, I don't think anybody's ever thrown the ball with more grace than Parker Bone III. Just beautiful, fluid motion that is it's almost ballet-like. The way that he's thrown the ball throughout all these years.
Yeah. And as far as looking, again, you can look past the stuff like the lefty-righty thing. I'm sure that's been especially when you bowl professionally. For league bowlers, it's one thing to kind of chat back and forth. But to look past some of those things, I do want to ask you the same question that I asked Carmen earlier. If you were in your prime in today's era, what do you think about today's game would favor you? What do you think you could really take advantage of? And what are some of the things that might be more of a challenge for you?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is back in my day, you took a rudimentary round object and you made it work. You can't do that in today's game. You got to be a little bit of a mad scientist. You have to understand how all the different balls work and what they can do for you and what they won't do for you. So you've got to be able to make so many more adjustments in today's game with your equipment. My gosh, from 1977 through 1979, I used the same ball almost every week. And I used it because it was a Columbia second. It was a bonanza. We had to write down the serial numbers. Now, I haven't bowled on tour forever, and I haven't used that ball since probably 1980 or 81. But it was a bonanza 5U66953. I remember those serial numbers because I wrote them down for almost every tournament for 3 years. The game was more about execution in my day than it is today. It's still execution, but it's execution with a knowledge of what these balls can do for you. You can't make the wrong ball work in today's game. You could make the wrong ball work in my day.
I've always really admired going back and watching those shows and seeing, because it was just somebody in a rudimentary round object, and whoever had the best, sixth sense for just getting the pins down was going to win. Now there's a whole lot more technology. They got ball reps everywhere, layout surfaces, cover tech, whatever else. And I get into a lot of that stuff on a lot of the videos that I do. But at the same time, I kind of like the simpler, where it was just, it was you and the ball and the lane, and you figured it out. The better bowler was the one that figured it out better than everybody else, without so much of the science and technology and whatever else. But even
the other thing that I didn't realize till I was removed from the game, what an edge that Mark and I had. I mean, yes, we were pretty accurate, and yes, we threw the ball with authority, but there was just two of us. There were two guys on tour, week in, week out, who had power and could hit where they were looking. In today's game, there's a lot of them. So my edge wouldn't have been as big in today's game as it was back then. And I never thought about it that way when I was bowling. I just thought, well, I know I'm a good player, and I know that I can somehow make it into the match play. I can work my way up into that top five, and I've got a chance to win. But I was put on the professional bowlers planet at the perfect time for me. I didn't have to reroute my game as many professionals did back in my day. It's as if they said, okay, Marshall, we're going to do the lanes, and we're doing them, and we're going to make them as nice for you as possible. And so it gave me a lot of confidence. And then when Mark Roth asked me to be his doubles partner, that gave me more confidence, and it just snowballed into a time when I just really felt like it was my right to win or to be competitive, week in and week out. And today's game is there are just too many players that have big hands. In fact, what Mark and I did back in our day, our rev rates would be middle of the road in today's game.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that too about the players changing their games, because Bob Benoit lives here in town, and he mentioned that he had a really hard time of it on tour when he started, and so he came back, he rebuilt his game. He said, I drilled something that was like 8 pounds, and I learned to, bowl the way that he bowls now, or that he's bowled since he had.
Bob threw the ball very straight and didn't hit very hard. And he was an okay bowler, but when he learned how to develop more power on the ball, he turned his game around and became a great player. And to this day, I don't think anybody ever bowled a better 300 game, whether it was on TV or not, than what Bob Benoit did with 12 shots up to here. I mean, every shot was amazing.
And that's a great story too, because he said that Mark shot 250 something at him, 257, 258, and he said that the only reason that he ever shot that was because I think that Mark had like a turkey 9 spare and then was chasing him. So I mean, if Bob misses up until the 9th frame or until the first shot in the 10th,
sure.
He said, "Why? If I miss once, then I'm in trouble, or we've got a whole lot closer game, and even then, it's just 1 frame." And so he said he didn't really have to think about it until he got up there in the 10th frame about the 300. But something else that he said too is that, you got to the point where you retired from the kids tour, just retired period. And he mentioned that he had gotten invited to the 50th, I think the 50th tournament of champions, where they invited everybody that had won something or other. And he said, it'd be great to go to that. But he's like, I'm not going to go if I don't think I have a chance to win, and I would have to practice 8 hours a day for the next month and a half or 2 months to even consider it. So it's great to be invited, but I'm just not going to go. What are your kind of thoughts on that? When it's time to, did you know when it was time to retire, or did you? You don't want to hang on too long, but you want to go out when you don't want to go out if you think you can still win.
I hung around too long. I probably should have left shortly after reactive resin came into play. I probably should have stopped, but I kept bowling for another 4 or 5 years, and then got lucky in the tournament in Detroit in 1996. It was a kind of a throwback week, and the pattern worked to my eyesight the way it worked back in the day. But I stuck around a little too long. But I agree with Bob. It doesn't matter what the prize fund is. If your game isn't there, and you've got to putting in all that time. Putting in 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day for months to try and get yourself there. You're probably still not going to get there. Sport is a relatively short window. However, there have been elongated careers. Walter Ray, Norm Duke, a few other players, and that's part staying in better condition, and it's part technology that afforded them the opportunity to keep being competitive. Later, back when I was bowling, when you got around 40, 42, 43, 44, you were done. It was just you just couldn't compete with the younger players because you didn't have the strength and the flexibility to make that rudimentary object work. The bowling balls have become so amazingly dynamic, and I credit all the companies that are making the equipment today for taking the game to a pretty amazing level. And yeah, it's a different game.
So who would you like? So again, if you're still in your prime right now, who would you really like to bowl right now? That's a current player. Who would you like to square off against on TV? Who do you think that you'd either have a fun time bowling against, or that maybe do a little trash talking with, or that somebody that's really got a steely mental game that you think that you'd have a great mental competition with?
Well, I couldn't beat any of them. So, I've as I said earlier, I'm not 100% bought into the two-handers, although they are the best of the best right now. I mean, when you look at the tour, you see Kyle Troop, you see Jason Belmonte, you see Anthony Simonson. The two-handers have taken over for the same reason that the power players took over back late in my era. People wanted to be like Mark, but now people want to be like Jason Belmonte. And the speed and the RPMs that they develop are just amazing. And it's, on the one hand, I enjoy watching it because I know it's something that I couldn't do, but then part of me still goes back to that clearing the thumb. And is clearing the thumb, should it be part of bowling? Should that be an integral part of bowling? And a good part of me says yes, it should. But that probably just makes me old.
Yeah, well, I mean, you never know. They had the same kind of debate over the belly putters on the PGA, thinking that if you were able to basically anchor the putter with your stomach, it took some of the the nerves out of play. If you just have your hands and you're in a critical situation, instead of just being able to tuck it into your stomach and just kind of turn and then turn back.
Yeah.
The thumb.
I think the USGA has they have a little I'm trying, how do I say this and stay somewhat politically correct and hope to ever have another job in bowling again? USGA has more backbone than the USBC. There, that wasn't that I didn't really I didn't pull any punches there. That's my opinion.
We've had Jeff Riggles on before, so if you follow him or read any of his articles, you know exactly what he thinks about USBC and what he just says. So, I think it'll be fine.
Maybe Jeff and I have certain things that we would agree upon.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that'll about cover it for me. What do you got? What do you got there, Dave?
I got a couple of more here for Marshall before we let you go. And once again, we appreciate you spending some time with us here on the Bowler Show, talking with Carmen and talking with us. You talked about Mark, and people talk about your strike balls back in the day, but you guys were both known, and especially Mark, as far as universally known, for being some of the best spare shooters at the time too. Did you guys work specifically on spares a lot, or was that just something that came natural with your bowling?
I think I was probably a little bit of both. And Mark was an incredible spare shooter, and I was always a very good spare shooter during my career. Pete Weber, amazing spare shooter throughout his entire career. That story that Carmen told about Ed Bourdet throwing 9 in a row, leaving a 10 pin and just throwing it in the gutter on purpose. I have a hard time believing that could ever be true, but I mean, he said it. It must be true. But and Ed was a player who was at or near tilt on many occasions. But spares are important, and in today's game, spares are still important. Although it's not unusual to see a top player today throw 9 or 10 strikes in a game and miss a spare or two and still shoot 240 or 250. But the spares were important. They are important, and that old saying, "Spares are for girls." Well, maybe more bowlers need to bowl like girls then, because you got to make them. And you won't talk. There's not a pro on tour that won't say that spares are very important. And for the players that aren't as good, they're just throwing pins away.
Well, and that's something I forgot to add earlier. Is that's why I really like watching the PWBA, because it feels like a more traditional version of the game, and I guess that makes me old too. But I do like seeing what the guys can do with the power and just overpowering the pins, or somebody like Simo that can throw backup balls, or just he seems to have.
He's incredible. I don't think there's a more gifted player in the sport today than Anthony Simonson, and to watch him throw that reverse hook, it's not a backup ball. It's a truck. It's power. And that's very impressive. But I wonder how good he'd be doing that if he had his entire hand in the ball. You couldn't do it. It's amazing. It's amazing what he can do, and that is the evolution of the game is going towards what Simonson is doing. So that if a player perceives the left side to be playing better than the right side, all of a sudden right-hander becomes left-hander, and Simonson can do that. It's very impressive.
And I think it's tricky for me, because I'm impressed by what the two-handers do, but again, the clearing the thumb thing, I'm kind of with you on that. But at the same time, he still seems to have that kind of throwback, get the pins down, whatever you have to do. Just that extra knowledge or that sixth sense about how to get the pins down, whatever it takes or whatever happens. But again, I'm still a fan of I grew up watching the shows on Saturday and stuff like that. And so I'm kind of more of a fan of traditional bowling myself, but I can't appreciate what these guys do.
Sure. Absolutely. I'm fortunate that I believe the Roth Holman doubles is going to be competed again next year, and so I'll have a chance to go back and be there for the telecast and get a chance to still stay involved in the game, at a small level. But it's always fun to go back out there. The guys are very respectful and very nice to me, and I enjoy that, and to have the opportunity earlier this evening to talk to Carmen, who I think 10 days from now is going to turn over another year. That was very, very special for me. When you guys messaged me and said that you wanted me to be on the show, the second half of your show, and Carmen was going to be on the first half of your show, I can tell you that I don't know if there's. In fact, well, I do know. There's nobody else in bowling that I would have sat here and watched for an hour before I came on. Carmen's the only one I'd have done that for, and I enjoyed listening to him, and we have, we go back so far and so many great memories, and I was fortunate to beat him a couple times early in my career, but there's nobody in the game of bowling that's respected any more than Carmen Salvino, and he deserves it.
No doubt about that. All right, Marshall, let's go ahead and wrap this up. We'll put a bow on this here. I want people to know what you're doing nowadays. I believe you're in the wine business. Talk a little bit about that. And are your bowling balls retired forever?
Well, I am in the wine business to a small extent. Diamondback.wine. You can go to our website, and my winemaker John Quinones makes high end wines. They're wonderful, and I enjoy being involved in it. It keeps me a little bit busy. I also have a pretty nice selection of wine in my home, which is nice. In fact, as soon as I get off, I'm gonna put some New Yorks in a cast iron skillet and open up a bottle of Diamondback Pinot Noir 2014, and Tina and I are going to enjoy a very nice meal. But so the wine business is interesting. It's very competitive, and yeah, you can go to my website, or you can message me on Facebook if you'd like me to be your personal Hall of Fame wine concierge. I'll be happy to do it. And there they are. That's right. Yeah, that's let's see, what am I having tonight? Oh, there it is. The Pinot. Yeah. Aside from that, I'm not playing as much golf as I used to. My mother, who turned 91 on the 2nd of November, she moved in with Tina and I about 4 months ago. So I'm taking care of her the way that she took care of me when I was a kid, and now I'm returning the favor, and it's a privilege, and it's also a little bit of a job, but it's what needs to be done.
All right, Marshall. Well, once again, we appreciate you coming on here, catching us up what you're doing now, and talking about the thrilling days of yesteryear when I won 0 titles and you won 22 titles out on tour. So,
and I'm also involved with Motive. So, Motive and I have been together for the last few years, and this does not diminish my respect for Bill Christman and everything he's done with Storm. And Bill and I are good friends, and we play Words with Friends, and we're still in touch. And when I see him, we go out to dinner together, and I have the utmost respect for Bill and Barbara Christman. They're great contributors to the sport, and the sport would not be the same without them.
Absolutely. I had the pleasure one year of going to the Storm Factory, and Bill walked me around, and then we spent 2 or 3 hours in his office just talking bowling, and we could have talked for another 2 or 3 hours. And that's just, he's just passionate about the sport, and he's given back so much. And, he's really, to be perfectly honest, Luke and I wouldn't be here without Storm. So we want to give them credit too. So, all right. Well, good luck with everything you're doing. Good luck with the wine. Good luck with your golf. I know you're really good at that sport also. So we appreciate you coming on here, Marshall, and you're more than welcome to come on anytime.
Well, thank you, Waz. Luke, I enjoyed it. Nice talking with both of you. And once again, Carmen, sure was great seeing you and talking with you.
All right. That is going to do it. Marshall, thank you once again. You have a good night, sir.
Thank you very much. You too.
All right, Luke, two rather unknown guests there to the people in the bowling world there. We had to really, kind of introduce them and let people know who they were. But no need for any other guests in this show. Two guests, both in, taking up an hour apiece there, basically. So I don't know about you, but every time I talk to some of the legends like this, we'll have a show once or twice like this a year. I always feel good. I mean, I sit there and laugh at the stories, of course, Carmen told. And, I kind of threw Marshall off there a little bit talking about the foul line thing, but that's kind of the hard-hitting journalist that I am, huh?
Yeah.
Actually, I had I don't know if he's still hanging around the silent queue, but I had another question for him that I crossed off instantly where in the 1996 AC Delco or 1990 AC Delco, somebody you may know, Kelly Kaufman. I assume you know, he's from Topeka.
Yeah, he's from Topeka. Yep.
And Kelly, this was Kelly's first match on TV. I'm pretty sure you'll remember this. And it was against Marshall Holman. And in the third frame, Marshall Holman had 19. I don't know if you remember this, but Marshall sparing in the first, and boy, he shocked Earl Anthony. Earl was on the call, and Marshall, double guttered. I think he's the only person to do that other than Justin Romick, I believe, did also.
Yeah.
We'll bring Justin's name in there. So as soon as he talked about the the foul line, and I thought, maybe I won't bring that one up. But obviously, he's had plenty of good memories on TV. That's that's just one of those unfortunate things. He's playing near the gutter, and it's going to happen. We saw in our last tournament with KC Tournaments on the short pattern. I mean, there had to be 50 gutters that I saw at least, and I don't even get to see a lot of the bowling. So. But good stuff with Marshall. I wish I'd ended up crossing with him somewhere along the line. Unfortunately, as he said, he was done by 99. Mark Roth was still bowling at the time, and I got a chance to cross with Mark. But would have been great to cross with Marshall. I never got that chance, and a lot of great stories.
Yeah. Fun fact: my wife says that she was actually kind of related to Kelly Kaufman for a bit. Said one of her mom's husbands was his cousin. So,
oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
and see, I brought that video up and seeing Kelly's reaction. He's just sitting there. He's like, "What just happened? This wasn't supposed to happen." He was just kind of looking down, trying not to look at Marshall, and because he was shocked, of course. But I don't know. Was it Angel that brought up the link there and the pictures on the wine, or was that you?
No, that was me.
Okay.
I got there on the Now that I've got this, so again, all my my members on the Discord side got me this new Uber computer. They surprised me with it a couple months ago when we at the KCO actually, and so I was able to take so I can use that for editing now. And so instead of that little laptop that would barely run the stream, now I've got my other computer that I used to edit on down here, and so I can just pull everything up. So yeah, he said something about the wine, so I just pulled up. I got like 5 windows open right now, and so I just pulled that up and added the stuff in there, and great.
That's awesome. I remember seeing when you were on there with the FEF, he was bringing up some stuff in that screen too. So that's always good, and that was right on time. But once again, we want to thank Angel for producing the show, getting the links out to everybody, getting with people, and getting them on the show here. Luke, before we go, we really didn't have any time for any commercials, so let's take a moment. Let's go ahead and play BobbyJacksons.com commercial before we run out of time here.
Bobby Jackson's Trading is the place to sell all your unwanted precious metals, including broken gold and silver jewelry. They also buy old silver and gold coins, so check them out for all your buying and selling needs. Also, did you know that Bobby Jackson's Trading pays top dollar for your unwanted gift cards? You know the ones your grandma got you for Christmas? Bobby Jackson's Trading is located on 23rd Street, just 1 block east of Noland Road in Independence, Missouri. They're open 7 days a week. Check them out at BobbyJacksons.com or give Bob Foster a call at 816-463-1919. That's 816-463-1919.
And Luke, while I got you, I can't remember. Are you and Angel bowling this week in Topeka?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think
right or left-handed?
yeah, I am bowling the grand finale right-handed though.
Okay.
We went out and got some shots today with the new exotic gem. So if you like I know that you like the original gem, I think you're really going to like this one too because it's a pearl version. And it's actually the same cover stock, so it's just the pearl version of that same cover stock. So I think that the exotic is definitely something that you need to check out. And I actually drilled one right-handed and one left-handed. So I'm gonna have a showdown on the review video, righty versus lefty.
Yeah, and did I see something on that already? That's for members only. The forecast exotic.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some things that obviously the company doesn't really want to have anybody promoting something like a month before it comes out. So I used to do these preview videos to give people some information and say, okay, they just announced this. This is the information. This is where it's going to kind of be. But they don't want to promote something. Obviously, it's like a month away. Well, we have other stuff that just came out. I mean, we got stuff like the Fate and the Zen U that are coming out next Friday. Or actually this coming Friday. We had some other stuff that just came out here recently. The Night Road is one of them. And so they don't necessarily want to be talking about something that's in December. But at the same time, it helps people out and helps them decide what they want to do. And there's some things that I can add for the members that I can't exactly put out publicly. So that's part of the membership thing, is that people get some early access and some extra videos that I can't necessarily put out publicly. So
I like the Fate video. I like the videos where at first you're, I'm not sure about this. I'm flat sevening, not sure about this ball. And then all of a sudden I can move in a little and just kind of soft hand this. And I really like it. Kind of like you did with the Night Road. Believe it or not, I watch your videos too from time to time, even though I don't understand 95% of the technology. I like watching you and Angel throw the ball. Obviously gives me a good idea what it's going to react like. But those are my favorite ones where you're not sure, and then all of a sudden, the next thing you know, you've thrown 13 in a row with it, and you just made a hand change or a little bit of speed change, and you're like, oh yeah, this thing's great.
Yeah, and that was actually the same day that I did that video with Packy. He was sitting there watching the whole time, and I kind of came back after a few shots and chuckled to him, like, gosh, I wonder how I got to figure out how I'm gonna lie about this ball now, and then I got it figured out, and which is of course a joke, because I mean I don't pull any punches on stuff, but at the same time, I don't just, if something sucks for me, it's still you can still recognize it's like, gosh, this ball's terrible for me, but for so and so this would be amazing. And so I got to walk the line between, I don't want to bury something because it sucks for me, especially when it's going to be great for somebody else.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things that some people will get online and sell a ball. It's like, well, I threw it for 2 games. It doesn't match up with me and whatever else. I'm like, you can't figure anything out in 2 games. You barely get the cover broken in. It used to be a thing on the urethane balls way back when, where, if your track was the width of a dime or less, that meant you were a pretty consistent bowler. I mean, that was kind of a thing way back when, but yeah. So, and I do want to mention before we get out of here too, that we've got our dog rescue fundraiser that we started. I had a live stream on that last night that I wasn't completely prepared for. But we're going to be doing the fundraiser on December the 10th, and they're up leading up to then. And then we're also going to be doing a year-end recap too. So we're going to count down our top 10 balls of the year and do some like best scent, best ball, worst ball, even. We're going to take another page from your playbook. We'll just come out and say that so-and-so was the worst ball that we made this year, and make a lot of people happy, but
well, along those lines, you and I, at the end of the year, we'll have obviously a wrap-up show. We'll have some of our better guests that we have on there. Of course, back in the day, we always had Chris Schlemmer on, and he would do his Schlemmies. So we're definitely looking forward to that. Find out what his top roto grip balls of the year were, or Storm. We can bring those in too, but. So we'll have a lot of fun with that. I'm not sure what your schedule is here. Obviously, I will be in Topeka next week for our 2 tournaments. So with the Chiefs game being flexed to Sunday night, and with me being in Topeka, I would imagine probably take off next week too. But then I think after that, it's pretty much smooth sailing until the end of the year.
Yeah, it should be. And even on some of the stuff, I think the grand finale's on a Saturday, but then you got a doubles tournament there. So there's a couple of them that we might be able to make work or do remotely, I guess. But yeah, we should be fine. Should be fine as far as that goes. And
so real quick, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, because I know people are wanting to know, because of a couple of your Facebook posts, is the left-handed thing, is that now going to be a thing of the past?
No, it's actually, I'm going to split some time. So what I'm going to do is that doing the leagues and the tournaments and all the filming is even a little bit too much for my left arm too. I've gotten to the point where I'm kind of slowing down a little bit. I'll get halfway through filming now, and I just get tired. And so what I'm going to do is, we have a fun league, a mixed league that we bowl on Friday nights. I'm going to keep doing left-handed. And in certain situations, like if we happen to be at Lunar, for example, definitely want to bowl there left-handed. Belton, don't want to ever bowl anything there left-handed. North Rock, have the choice. If it's on a tougher pattern, probably bowl it righty. If it's on something easier, probably bowl it lefty. And going to do our scratch league on Thursday nights. The Mike Menlin are going to do that right-handed again, and then stuff like nationals and whatever else. So I'm going to try to split time and see how it works, because I don't want to abandon the lefty thing, because I'm, halfway decent at it. It's miserable, but given the right situation, it's okay. But there are some times where I'd really, really like to be right-handed. And so I think that if I can kind of split time, I can give the arms a break, not put so much time on them, so many games on them all at the same time. And so I think it's going to work out. That's what I'm going to do anyway. So yeah, like I said, I drilled an exotic gem with each hand. I drilled an infinite physics right-handed that I really like so far. Of course, I had to drill a ProMotion, but yeah, we're going to give that a chance and see if that complicates things too much, or if it just kind of frees me up and is the magic combination. We'll see.
All right, well, you're talking to the right guy when it's between right and left-handed and making the choice. Now, in the Medlin League, are you going to have to petition the league for your change? Because I know in our leagues, when I made a change during the middle of the year, they wanted, 3/4 of the captain had to approve that.
Yeah, I am going to finish out the year left-handed, so that I don't have to, and that would be a tricky situation here because it's a scratch draft league. Whenever you have somebody sub for you, they've got to be within 5 pins, either higher or lower of your average, unless you're a captain, and then you can have anybody sub for you. But I would that wouldn't work for that league. So I am going to go ahead and finish out the year. But then again, next year I can just get back in the draft as a righty, and no problems. The interesting thing is that I've talked to USBC about this several times, but I can enter tournaments next year right-handed using my left-handed average, which Royal Crest has been pretty rough this year on the left side. I'm at like 202 and 203 or 204 or something like that.
Right.
Trevor averaged 243 last year. He's currently at like 211 or 212. So wow. Royal Crest is rough, and Trevor goes everywhere and just obliterates things, and he's averaging it's halfway through November, and he's averaging like 210. So wow. Royal Crest has been rough on the left side, but I can enter right-handed next year unless I get re-rated or unless I voluntarily re-rate myself. Yep. If I end the year with 204 as my highest average, I can enter tournaments right-handed next year at 204.
I got to be honest. When I was doing that, I didn't remember being able to do that. But luckily, at the time, I was 220 or above, both left and right-handed. So
yeah, well, I was that a couple of years ago. I was scratched both hands, and so it didn't really matter. And it's been rough the last year and a half. So
you ventured out into the left-handed tournament game, which I never did. I bowled a couple of small things and never had any aspirations or thoughts that I was going to be any good on any patterns or especially anything tough. Spares not nearly as good left-handed as I am right, so I kind of kept my stuff on house. But anyway, it's always fun to talk about it, and to be perfectly honest, we're lucky we can do what we can do with both hands. So
yeah, as they say, I screwed around and found out. So
now you know.
Yeah, we're going to make it work. But yeah, at the same time, I still want to shoot 800 left-handed. I've got 3 790s.
Oh, wow.
I had a chance at it, 791, 92, 93, whatever else. I might have 4 of them. I can't remember. But I do have a couple 300s left-handed. I really would like to get that 800. So I don't want to give up on it. But at the same time, it's miserable more often than it's not. So.
Yeah, I actually had 800 left-handed before I had 300. Believe it or not, I had. Yeah, it was with an AMF Legacy. I believe it was a green ball. I don't know if you want to bring that up on the screen or not, but that's the way I remember it. It was an AMF Legacy, and it was on 3 and 4 at Summit Lanes. I remember it vividly, and but I was lucky. Obviously, I got the multiple 3s and 8s, and I'm still going to do it one more year. I still feel like I got one more year. I don't want to be doing this, when I'm 80 going, I think I'll switch over. I think I can do it one more year. I was going to do it this year. Summit put in new lanes, and I thought, hey, I want I want to give these lanes a chance this year and see what they do right-handed and kind of evaluate. There you go, right there.
Yeah.
That is it. That is my first 800. I knew you would be right on top of that.
Quick on the draw, yeah.
Yeah, I might have polished it a little bit more than what you see on that screen, but it did work for me back then, so that's all that matters. So, all right, man. If you got anything else, let me know. If not, let's put a bow on this. I'll let you lead us out here. When it's always fun, not to get too waxing poetic here, but it's always fun to have guys like Marshall and Carmen on, and just to be honest, it's fun to be able to have them on and just talk.
Yeah, any time where you can just let somebody go and I don't have to ramble like an idiot before realizing I don't actually have a question, that's always a great time for me. So
yeah, and I learned that the private chat is not private between you and me only.
Yeah, fun fact.
I did not know that. I thought, well, that's a you and I thing, but now I get it because we're all guests, and I'm actually a guest here, so. That makes sense. So, all right, take a moment to thank the people we need to thank and get us out of here.
Yeah, we want to thank all our sponsors again. Of course, Storm, Coolwick, Logo Infusion, SRGBBFS, Bowlers Mart, Turbo, Bobby Jackson's Trading, Double J's Pro Shop, S&H Custom Homes. I think that does it. So, thanks everybody for watching. We will maybe see you next week. Maybe not. We'll see. The Chiefs are playing well, and so they keep getting these Sunday night games. So, and you guys are busy with tournaments. But yeah, we'll see you when we see